So the idea behind this hackathon project, it's kind of started probably a few months before when I was helping my daughter with her Hawaiian class, and I was trying to kind of like learn some ʻōlelo Hawaii. So I was trying to kind of like look up like I'm a technologist. I was like, okay, I need an app. I need something to start, like to show me something, and I couldn't find anything, and it was very like frustrating from what I could find. And then my wife works for an organization that the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, and they do a lot with like reading by like materials and trying to research and also write in it. And I saw that they also struggle with writing it because there's not really like tooling or things to do. So as someone who's builds software, I was like, what can we do to basically allow other people to start building tools and things for modern readers and writers? So these are a little hackathon team. It's like me, my brother-in-law Andrew, my daughter, and my nephew Makakoa, and we picked up a straggler, Joe. But it was fun because I really wanted to. This is a wonderful space. And I was talking to Kim yesterday because it allowed me to bring my family in to have them be part of this, which was really important because they're both thinking of technology careers and things like that. And so being part of this room of all these wonderful, smart people of designers and thinkers and technologists and everyone, and then being part of it was really amazing. So thank you everyone for creating the space that allowed this to happen. So like I said, like a dictionary exists, right? Everyone uses the website and they go to it and they search it, but it's only in website form. You only have, and it only has like some very basic features that are very like dictionary-like. Some apps do exist, but it's like basically like a random company generates a whole bunch of word lists and then generates an app. Basically, it's not an actual dictionary or anything for anyone that would want to learn Hawaiian. They're very like basic things. And then modern ʻōlelo learners, like and writers, need better tools. They need apps, keyboards, learning apps, all sorts of things like that. And the part that was kind of that I think is important is that just like we showed, like in this, like people have lots of great ideas and lots of stuff, but they need access to data, right? You can build all sorts of really interesting things, all sorts of interesting apps, visualizations, all sorts of that framework, that data needs to be there and accessible so you can build on top of. So I thought that's something we could help with. So we actually worked with the folks that run the website and Moʻokūʻauhau to actually get access to this information. So this is all with them and with their permission. Nothing is kind of there. That's why it's actually many months in the making, because it took a long time to converse with them to get permission to work with this and to build this. So this is what the API looks like. I mean, the website looks like right now, right? Like if you type in POW or something, that's kind of what you get. And then if you click on one of them, this is like this mountain of text. And so if you're like a researcher or stuff like that, like maybe you can parse this, but if you're like a 10-year-old kid or like me, like trying to just learn, I'm like, what exactly do I take from this? There's so much here. So anyway, these are some of the issues and why, like, even though something exists, we can do better if we had access to the data in a different format. So the solution that we built is an API on top of the library data, allows you to search for words, get definitions, and something that didn't see, like the ability to kind of submit and get synonyms and antonyms, like a thesaurus, which right now, like that's like a modern writer would like want to kind of like, you can't just use the same word like over and over again. And then get sample sentences, not only from like one or two, but from existing text. So throughout, and just keep getting just mine data to see how are these words used? How is this word used in different contexts, maybe throughout time, right? Like now, like how was it used 150 years ago? There's based on all the work of digitizing all of this, like old writings, like we now have access to them and we can start to mine it. And but thinking about how this is misused in the past, like data and access to indigenous language data, we built something that was like owned and operated by the UH College of Language. So if they have access to the API, the data is there, like they're hosting it. They provide access to the API to people, to developers that want it. So this allows to not have situations like people building something and selling the language back to you, right? That's something we want to avoid. So it's we try to alleviate this for that. And then it's a building block for the community, right? Like the thing we're talking about, the dictionary app is just one idea that the community, all these technologists and designers could build on top of it, to build. And then on the other things, like what would a modern ʻōlelo dictionary kind of look like? What kind of features would it have? So that's the idea of a dictionary where I brought like the kids in. It's like they're the ones learning, so I had them design the app, design the features for them, and then brought my wife, and then she's like, okay, here's the features that I would want, and then had heard like the design things. So it was really kind of like, again, like I mentioned, the ability to search, like word details, pronunciation guide, word of the day, sample sentences. It's built on like a React Native architecture, so we can provide iOS and Android apps pretty easily, so it's easy to kind of build. And the app would be open source. So while the data and everything is like owned and maintained, the app itself doesn't need to be. So it can be like a grounding, like a platform for other people to build apps on top of, or it's for the community to contribute to the dictionary, new features and new ideas in the future without, having to build everything from scratch. And then for more advanced, like I mentioned, pull sample sentences from existing text. We can do that. The ability to do like type ahead prediction, right? Like we are normally used to when we type, we're not normally like writing out every single word. Like we have keyboard like helpers and things to do that. So we can start to build that. We can build like custom ʻōlelo keyboards we wanted. And then something that I've been working on kind of on the side along with them, the ability to take old ʻōlelo writings and turn them into modern day. So add tahakos and opinas to old text, which requires machine learning because it's like there's no like a one-to-one representation of each one. It's all based on context. But that's something that we can do once we have this platform that we can build on top of. And then something my wife was mentioning and that we're wanting to build in, the ability for the community to contribute to it. So you have this app, you have to say, oh, here's a definition, I think, or here's a pronunciation, how I would pronounce this word. So the ability for the community to submit information, and then for the Ulukau, like administrators and stuff to verify and say like, yeah, okay, cool, and then add it to the dictionary. So it's not just a book that exists one, it becomes a living document, a living database. So these are designs and user experience that my daughter and nephew, Makalika and Makotoa, built with like, word of the day and things like that. All sorts of things that, I didn't necessarily think of, like pronunciation guide, sorry, there might be stuff in there. They were competing of who was actually doing the more work. But I thought it was really cool to be part of it. Here's our API documentation. So this is built and working right now. I ingested 45,000 words and definitions into it. We have an API that's built on top of it, so you can query it now and search for words and get definitions of words and all of that. So these are just a screenshot of the documentation page. You can see it's working. So like a normal request, like for searching for cow or something, would return a whole list of words right now, like with various definitions. And then we can build different UIs, right? It doesn't have to be the things. And then an admin for the team to actually edit content to verify if they if the dictionary said this, but they're like, I just want to clean it up. That's like too complicated. It allows them to kind of like edit again this information and kind of but this is kind of like the very beginning. We just got this kind of working and running and everything. Joe and Andrew just got the skeleton of the React Native app, querying data and starting doing it. So hopefully I can hand this over to the Google Cloud team and they can start giving access and access tokens and stuff to be able to access the APIs, and then we'll continue to work on the dictionary and then open source GitHub repo so everyone can contribute. So that was our project.
Do that on time. For a couple 5 minutes. Yeah.
I don't know if this is necessarily a question, but I was like, as you were talking about it, I was like thinking about the uses of this, and like, I'm thinking about how whenever I see a Hawaiian word, I'm go like open up a new browser and look it up on Wehewehe, and then look parse the data, blah blah blah. But I was imagining the way that I have like a hover kind of visualization for like sources. We could just make an API call in order to see like what the meaning of a word would be, and also necessarily we would be having access if we could get access with our website rather than have it, like we have permission, so that it'd be used on.
Yeah, like a browser like plugin would work super easily, and that's something that could only be built by this community, right? Like only like this community, someone that would think it and build something that kind of what was necessary. So that's exactly the types of things I hope the community builds on top of it. That was my pitch to them, to be like, this is why a random person asking you, like, it's like, help me, like, allow this exist, because I know the community is ready to build on top of it. So you're absolutely right. These ideas exactly what I hope people start building on top of them.
Okay, so Taylor and Rob.
So you're kind of like this of like how ML can be used to read like newspapers of like really interesting things that like are like picking up dialects that come out of the newspaper because of the way that they spoke and wrote. But then you would be able to piece together dialects and like call them out from different writers and stuff. I mean, you want to talk about that? That was like,
yeah. So it's I am new to machine learning, but I'm like been around it. So it's like, but to me, I'm like someone that uses technology, right, and pieces things together. I'm not an ML researcher or anything, but the technology has gotten to the point where we can start using it. You don't need to be a machine learning expert in order to build really interesting things, but you need access to the data and you need a little bit of like knowledge, right? So the thing I built in order to translate, I literally just copied the source from a book. I knew the shape of the problem, right? The shape of the problem was, it's a translation problem. So I needed text that was like the old and then the modern. So I went to like the ʻōlelo team and I was like, can I have the before and after, right? I need sentences before and after, and they provided and then I could build a model that says like, whenever you say this is the correct answer. So it's actually very simple in terms of like the way that the code is, but you need access to tool. You need to know this, the problem, this is the shape. And once you do, if you gave it enough samples of like, when people write this is like where they're from, or this is like the dialect that they're speaking now. You give them enough of those samples and it can. What I've built so far, it has like 95% accuracy so far with like the very basic knowledge I have. So with 95% accuracy, I can take any like old sentence and turn it into a modern, like a sentence a modern day reader could read it. It's not perfect, right? It still requires humans, so you can't just do it for everything magically. Machine learning doesn't allow for that kind of thing, but it starts to get you there. And I hope we can use machine learning for lots of other stuff, especially once you have all this data kind of hooked in. There's no reason why it can't be like, hey, find patterns, find like interesting clusters of things, but you need access to data, you need access to the stuff, and then you can start applying it.
Yeah. It's interesting too to like connect all of these thoughts. I love the idea of like Lily Noy, when she was speaking about ʻōlelo yesterday and her particular experience and access, and then Ki'ilani was talking about Akamai in one of the circles, and how like of course that means like clever, smart, but also Aka and like reflection of your ancestors that you're reminding me of. It'd be so interesting to see how like those bits of audio or the like like the blooming of, like, there's something about ʻōlelo where it like opens up in different ways depending on content. The idea of like allowing for that blooming, but also being attached to person and place. And then that audio can be like scraped for its text and can be searchable. And there's a way of just connecting those things where you both get that emotional expression, hearing the voice in time, her understanding of that, but then also having it connected in such a way where like that is documentation, that's a path, that's a trace. I just think those are other kinds of lines of lineage that get to be made visible. It's beautiful.
Does anyone have any mana'o on the audio archive at the district museum? My understanding is that there's a tremendous amount of audio files that are available to the show. You know, it's pretty hard to access, and you're not able to record it when you're in there or really take it with you. I think if you pay a specific amount, you can record a specific amount, but they have like a massive vault of all this audio for a very long time ago. I've been working with some people that have been trying to chip away at that and make it accessible. So I'm still trying to learn, but use cases like this are fascinating for that. A friend of mine is trying to like pull out dialects, although they don't exist anymore, but doing that kind of research.
I know, like, University of Honolulu, audio, department, you can go in there. And I don't know if that's the name for this one, but overlap, but I've been able to go in there before, like, when I was a student at another college.
I know that Hulu Card, I know this recently has a lot of people on there, like, it's a big part of the learning, it's just people only speaking, so you pick up on the, like, interest, it's like, oh, you hear people talk nowadays, very different to how we used to talk back in the day. And it's all online, like, a lot of it, is just stuff that we talk about, I think it's the same. Yeah, it's digitized and available. I mean, that's what I learned in one day, you just listen to the tapes with this really old cassette player, but it's all, see, a lot of it is. That sounds like, I mean, I think you're talking about something else, but there is,
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be some time after just for like general stories.